This talk today, welcome back to my Christian YouTube channel. This talk today, I guess if you can guess what the title is. Take a closer look. Obvious. Anyway, I'm going to read through some notes and I'm going to share something with you that just came into my head today and I thought I needed to talk about it. Because I saw some people were looking for information on Reddit, I think, about this man I'm going to talk about and his ministry. So I've decided to do something about that. I should send them a link to what I think will help them. So, here we go. I was thinking today about a Christian minister who was using his spiritual gift of discernment to alert people in Australia back in the 1980s to the dangers of different religious and human potential type movements who not only wanted to make money out of gullible people and organisations, but to achieve their own ambitions. The minister I'm talking about, who had this ministry, was the Reverend Adrian van Leen, who was originally a pastor in the Churches of Christ movement in Western Australia. He started up an organisation called Concerned Christian Growth Ministries, to speak up where few were doing so, or there probably were, but he got very organised. Apart from speaking engagements around Australia, he also published a newsletter called Take a Closer Look. I've got a few samples of it here. I think I had more, but they might have inadvertently got thrown out. But he used to do this out monthly. Take a closer look. There's the magnifying glass. And don't be silly is the warning to us there. This one featured extreme Christian fringe groups. Follow the example. I guess follow the example that some of our Christian teachers in the Bible give us. Extreme Christian fringe groups part 2. Trendy but not true. What's in it for me? The religion of selfism is the supreme religion of the 20th century. Introspective navel-gazing is everywhere, and all that counts today is me, myself and I. There you go. Navel-gazing. So he put that out, and he was doing speaking engagements around Australia. That's where I first came across him and ended up getting these newsletters on a regular basis. Some of the things of note that he challenged were Freemasonry, Jehovah's Witnesses, Transcendental Meditation, Children of God, extreme Christian fringe groups, Scientologists, and the WISE organisation that was attached to them to infiltrate government departments and all corporations with all sorts of their teaching to so-called benefit them in their management. Maitreya, can't remember what that was. Clairvoyancy. He had an article about mass cult suicides. The movie that came out, The Last Temptation of Christ. He was also featured on TV a few times back in the day as a cult buster. At least that's what the media called him. Well, at the time all this was happening, I was working in a large Australia-wide corporation that was seeking to gain a competitive edge in the market. They brought in a very ambitious program as they decided that the staff needed to have their skills and their minds expanded. It was controversial and very costly. Some thought it was great, but many didn't. A friend of mine who had become a Christian was very much caught up in all sorts of, before he became a Christian, was very much caught up in all sorts of occultic type beliefs and practices. He worked in the same organisation as me, and he could see this program. It was a very expensive program and very wide-reaching, all Australia-wide. He could see that it had some problems, and he began to garner support and challenge the management out of his own volition, at his own risk of his reputation, as he could see the New Age type beliefs that propagated and imposed in various that was being propagated and imposed in various training programs. I don't believe the program ever really worked. Some probably thought it a good idea. So we come forward to today and over the last 20 or so years, and organisations including sporting bodies and corporate are still falling for such ideas. If you lived in Australia, you could think of the scandal in other countries of using drugs and various mindset-altering programs. And they have caused, the mindset ones have caused waves in Australia's AFL Football League and other sports. There has been much discussion of such techniques, and many players became very personally troubled by taking part in camps and exercises. The worst example, going way back, was probably where the players in one team, pre-season, they went on a camp and were psyched up to walk on a bed of coals like Fijian firewalkers. That did not have a happy ending. One main marquee player, top player, had his feet very severely burnt. Back in the 80s, we did not have the internet like it is now, and social media platforms where people can have their say. Adrian did an amazing job, but I'm not sure that it was. But I'm sure that it was probably not sustainable to keep going. In other words, I think he had 4 full-time staff, and some volunteers trying to run this on a full-time basis. This organisation left his job as a pastor of a church to do this. Now, many today, because of social media, are calling out many. They may be right, they may be wrong, but everyone, including you and me, needs to take a closer look. I've put a link underneath to a tape of Adrian speaking in a church meeting. Thank you, Adrian, wherever you are. You did an amazing job. Of interest is the fact that getting back to the corporate training program some years later, the one that we were talking about, that my friend was combating and several others, including trade unions, got involved in. They weren't necessarily Christians, but they could see the problems with these programs. Of interest is the fact that getting back to that program, some years later, one of the leaders had an article in a local Christian monthly magazine telling his story, how he was involved in the program and delivered some of the program. But he had since become a Christian. And he agreed with what we had been saying all along. It had been based on New Age teaching. And some people might like that. But there's a lot of problems as far as Christianity is concerned in New Age teaching, and it can lead you up a merry dance up the wrong garden path. So underneath there will be a link to I've got some of Adrian's tapes here and some of those magazines from when he came to our church. But there's a link underneath to where one of his talks on the New Age movement is actually recorded, and I've put the link on that. It's on the internet, so you'll be able to listen to him talking about some of these things himself. So thanks for watching, but don't forget to take a closer look. See you later.